the Supreme Court just froze a lower court order that bars the government from regulating ghost guns. So here's the deal. Ghost guns are these gun kits that you can buy online that are generally, made with 3D printing. And they've got no serial numbers, they're untraceable, and in some cases, some of them are even there's plastic ghost guns, you can even get them through, TSA and stuff like that. And several states have outlawed them, and the Biden administration has tried to outlaw them, and a lower federal court said, no, you can't outlaw these things because they're guns, and you can't outlaw guns. And so this got taken to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said to the lower court, hold your horses, and let's wait until we hear all this thing. But for the moment, the ban on ghost guns stands. So that's interesting. And it was Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts who joined the Democrats on the court. I'm reluctant to call them conservatives and liberals because I really think that what we have on the court are Democrats and Republicans. We should just acknowledge it's a political body just like all the rest of them. Also, this fascinating new study that was conducted by Everytown for Gun Safety, American University's Polarization Extremism Research and Innovation Lab, and the Southern Poverty Law Center. They got together and conducted a study. They polled over 4,000 American young people between the ages of 14 and 30 from a nationally representative sample. They did this over the course of the last year. And the director of research at the American Universities, it's called the Polarization and Extremism Research and Innovation Lab, PERIL, PERIL. Pasha Dashgard, who is the director of research there, an expert on male supremacy and online radicalization, said, quote, in places of economic instability, men are shifting from this attitude of man as provider to man as protector. You may not be able as a man to be the primary breadwinner, but you can, through acquiring guns and the willingness to use guns for violence, reclaim your masculinity as a protector. She said this speaks to a larger cultural dynamic where many white men are feeling unsure of how to basically define themselves as men in the current society. They might want to go see the Barbie movie, actually. But anyhow, as a result, many young men are turning to guns as, quote, unimpeachable access to masculinity. He said most parents, Dashgard is a he, excuse me. He said most parents would be shocked to find their children are interacting with white supremacist recruiters while playing video games and watching Twitch streams. They pointed to campaigns such as Bushmaster's Reissue Your Man Card, this is a gun manufacturer, and an ad from Firearms that was posted during the Black Lives Matter protests that portrays Kyle Rittenhouse as a hero. And this one researcher said the rhetoric of the gun lobby has long induced racist and sexist overtones, included racist and sexist overtones and dog whistles, which we may assume only reaches the older generations in our country. But what our research shows is that this rhetoric does seem to be sticking with young boys and men. They also found that 42% of the young people they surveyed had easy access to guns in their homes. Wow. We have a problem right here in River City. All righty, let's pick up your phone calls here. Patrick in East Lansing, Michigan. Hey, Patrick, what's on your mind today?
Oh, Tom, hi. I wanted in the Ohio vote today to just relate my conversation with David Pepper, who you had on your program. He was Ohio Democratic Party chair, and he came on your program and talked about laboratories of autocracy, just basically about the Republican capture of Ohio politics.
Right. He's got a great Substack newsletter, by the way, too.
Yeah, I follow him. He's an ally. We've worked with him a lot, but we were gathering because I was part of the 7,800 people who circulated a ballot proposal in Michigan. We got it on the ballot. We got 540,000 signatures.
To do what?
We passed it to create citizens non-partisan redistricting outside the legislature.
Right, to end gerrymandering, essentially, yeah.
Yes, and so when we spoke to David Pepper, it was a small core group. I was on the drafting committee. I'm very closely related to the head of the education committee. And I was one of the people who went out and did these community forums, talked to school boards, city councils, neighborhood groups. And so I knew how this was messaging, and I'd seen our whole campaign from the ground up. And David Pepper was in the aftermath of passing this in Ohio, where they also outlawed partisan gerrymandering. So when you say, outlawed
partisan in 2015 and
gerrymandering,
2018, and the Republicans are completely ignoring it.
So what happened was, because this was inside the core group of people who are devoting thousands of hours, grassroots people, he's part of it in Ohio, I'm part of it in Michigan. So we got to have a different kind of conversation. And he's saying the kind of branding you do on your show, which is blame it all on the Republicans. And we had a very different kind of conversation, which I want to share with you. We reminded him of the fact that our drafting committee spoke to his drafting committee, and we said what we were doing, which was we were going to have citizens chosen like a jury, ultimately by lottery, and then have the Republicans and the Democrats and the independents, and all these procedural safeguards. We told them we were meeting with the people in Arizona. That's a Republican state. We met with the people from California. We reached out to Alaska, Idaho, both of whom had this. We had Arnold Schwarzenegger come in the close and have massive rallies on game days in East Lansing and Detroit and Grand Rapids. We worked with Republicans. We worked with Democrats. We worked with independents. And we said to him, do you remember Democratic establishment figures killing the only thing that works, which is truly independent citizen redistricting? So what's the difference? The difference is we knew Fox guarding the chicken house. You put it in the legislature. They were swinging for the fences. We'll get the legislature back. We can't release our grip. You get people to support it, and then it actually works. So they made a different bargain, a devil's bargain, and it got captured. It got captured because, as we told them at the time before ink went to paper, you got Supreme Courts in other states already, Virginia, North Carolina, now Alabama, thumbing their Texas, plumbing their nose, and then their Supreme Court's overlooking it, and then the U.S. Supreme Court doing nothing about it. We already knew the playbook. So the lesson was that the establishment Democrats, not the enemy, but the obstacle to change and why we're where we are in Ohio, had an existential meltdown over real people independently, like on a jury, drawing lines. They didn't trust the voters, and they didn't trust people outside of who they could control. Now, the other thing I said to him, and I asked him, he was blaming everything gone wrong in Ohio on the Republicans. And I said, you were there. You're my age. I'm in my 60s. You were there when the trade agreements got shoved down the throat of the voters, and now we're on the rubble. Because I work, my business is in Ohio. I work in Youngstown. I work in these desiccated industrial Rust Belt cities. I said to David Pepper, where were you when the wrecking ball was coming down and knocking 780,000 jobs out of Ohio? And he did some hubbity, mumbo jumbo, but he was on the side of the establishment Democrats with the trade deals. I said, I'll tell you where I was. I was with Dick Gephardt on the steps of the Capitol in Michigan with 80,000 people. My former boss, Don Regal, U.S. Senator, who used to be a Republican, became a Democrat, Ross Perot, and Pat Buchanan. And we were trying to stop the offshoring of jobs. And the establishment Democratic Party, Bill Clinton, held the vote out. And my friend from Economic Policy Institute was on the floor of the House as they held it open longer than any vote, get 6 votes from 6 Democrats by bribing them the money that they gave them, earmarks. And it was a thoroughly corrupt bargain. And I said, we can oppose all of that, like Lori Wallach is asking to do on your show, but we have to not make it all the Republicans. And if we do call out what the establishment Democrats did in killing true gerrymandering reform in Ohio, which they did, from the inside without any fingerprints, so they got plausible deniability, which they did with the trade deal, what do we end up with? We end up with politics that help us all. Democrats would still win. In fact, they'd have a marginal advantage. So I just wanted to lay that down as a marker.
Right.
Because if we say we believe in democracy, we have to actually walk the walk.
Yeah. So the argument that's being made in some states right now, New York State, for example, is that Republicans have heavily gerrymandered so many states that if those states were no longer gerrymandered, the Democrats would have a significant advantage in the House of Representatives right now. But the Republicans control the House because of gerrymandering in red states. And that blue states, by going to citizens' commissions, as California has done, are basically, handing the elections to the Republicans because they're surrendering on the battlefield. Instead, that blue states should be gerrymandering as aggressively as red states are, because I'm talking solid blue states, not purple states, because they're not going to fall into Republican hands. And this is. I'm guessing this was probably the theory in Ohio when Democrats blew it up. But you're saying...
Well, here's the answer. You're echoing exactly what David Pepper said.
And you're saying that's a lousy argument.
I'll tell you the answer. I gave him my answer to that. I said we had a proof theorem where we got a scientific experiment, Michigan and Ohio. It worked in Michigan. Democrats got the majority. Republicans might win back the House this coming election. But it's fair, and people accept it, and it passed by 58%.
Right.
We have the hot hand. Now, our plan, not their plan, made it into H.R. 1. And it would be made national. And Biden fell down, and the establishment Democratic Party is protecting him in not making a filibuster exception to pass H.R. 1 and put the Michigan citizens redistricting on the ballot for the whole country.
Manchin and Sinema.
No, Manchin came along. I was very much involved in that. Manchin came along, and I said to David Pepper, because we were having the whole Sinema meltdown at the time, and Manchin came along. We were one vote short. And I said, Sinema's going to be out. She started as the Green Party. She got bought off. She's out. If they don't campaign for the right solution, and if the establishment Democratic Party allied with the corporate funders are not forced out of the way, like they are when you have grassroots movements, you will never get a filibuster exception. You will never get Michigan citizen redistricting, and we will be stuck in this partisan grind all over the country as long as the eye can see.